You can call me Mystic Mike because I predict these things.
Dan Ige takes on Sean Woodson this Saturday at UFC 314. And this is going to be an absolute banger at 145 pounds. Dan Ige, absolute dog, will take on all comers, fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. He's fought the who's who of 145 pounds, looking to bounce back off of a 2-fight losing streak against Sean Woodson, who's on a really good run right now. 4-fight winning streak. You could say a 7-fight unbeaten streak with a split draw to Luis Saldana a few years ago, but looking really good as of late. And I can't continue to discount Sean Woodson. In the past, I thought he was just kind of a pitter-patter striker. You know, has really good reach, really good boxing, but really doesn't have that killer instinct or that power to put guys away. And he proved me wrong in his last outing against Fernando Padilla, getting the first-round knockout against him. Before that, beat Alex Caceres, beat Charles Jourdain, beat Dennis Bazooka, beat Yusuf Zalal back in the day. Somehow got choked out by Julian Erosa in his only loss in the UFC, but very good wins. He's really making a name for himself at 145 pounds. Very good boxer, amateur boxer with like a 46-3 record. Crazy reach and frame for the division. He's 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. So just absolutely crazy. He's got a small torso, really long legs, really long arms, really good boxing, great defense, great jab, fights behind his jab very well, moves well, switches stances. Just very talented. And he's really shown an improvement in his takedown defense as well. I think he's got like an 84% takedown defense. He's like taking down a chair. You know, you pick him up and you try to dump him. He's always got a leg or an arm posting on the ground because he's usually, 4 or 5 inches taller than his opponent. So I got to go with Sean Woodson in this one. Dan Ige, he is a threat just because he's so gritty. And he's a really good fighter. He's very well-rounded, has a lot of power for the division. They say that his hands are like the size of middleweights, is what I've heard. And the path to victory against Sean Woodson is to get him to the ground. And Dan Ige, he's a judo brown belt, a jiu-jitsu black belt. I think he was like a D3 wrestler. So he's got all the skills to get him to the ground, but we just haven't seen Dan Ige be that successful with his wrestling in the past. He's got a 26% takedown accuracy rate. Not getting tons of takedowns in his fights. Like he got one takedown against Lerone Murphy, and Lerone Murphy took him down 3 times in their fight. And on paper, Dan Ige is by far the better wrestler than Lerone Murphy. So I just don't think he's going to be able to close the distance as well as he wants to land the devastating strikes against Sean Woodson. I think Sean Woodson's going to be able to, kick him with his toothpick legs, teep him to the midsection, kick his legs. He's just going to be able to fight behind his jab very well and keep Dan Ige at bay. I don't think Dan Ige is going to have success with the takedowns either. Charles Jourdain, he was in on a lot of really good singles and doubles against him in his last fight and just couldn't put him on the ground. I think the last person to take down Sean Woodson was Luis Saldana, and that was, 2 or 3 years ago. Before that was Yusuf Zalal, but he ended up losing that fight. So really the only person I've seen that had success getting takedowns and getting the win was Julian Erosa, and that was almost 5 years ago. So I do think Dan Ige is a good dog. He's a plus 135 underdog. Sean Woodson's minus 165, I believe. But it's just hard for me to pick against Sean Woodson because he's on an absolute roll right now. He has tons of momentum. He's starting to put guys away with his striking. I don't think he'll put down Dan Ige and put him away. Dan Ige is just too tough, but it's hard to ignore the height and reach advantage that Sean Woodson's going to have. And some guys have that, but they don't really have the skill to reinforce it. But Sean Woodson does. He's got very good boxing. His kicking game is improving, and his takedown game is only ever improving. And he even took Charles Jourdain down at the end of their last fight in the 3rd round. So I'm going to go with Sean Woodson to get this one done. I think he outpoints Dan Ige, keeps him at range, just lands some better strikes on the feet. I don't think he hurts him or gets him out of there. And I think he'll be able to defend the takedowns if Dan Ige gets in on him. Dan Ige showed to kind of gas a little bit in his last fight against Lerone Murphy. And I feel like if Sean Woodson can keep it on the feet and just constantly be putting volume on him and defending takedowns, I think that he'll get this one done. I don't see Dan Ige having the gas tank to continually shoot the takedowns that he's going to need to do to get Sean Woodson to the ground and hold him there. So I'm going to go Sean Woodson to get this one done by decision. Thanks.